So we already crossed two different paths about what your favorite animal is to photograph and your favorite group of animals. Um, so we've talked a lot about the Laurel Highlands, and I know you've gone to different locations to do photography as well. But where would be your favorite place to go out and photograph birds or any animals for that matter?
Yeah, well, I have a couple local favorites. One of my favorite photography spots, like when I want to go and I want to really focus on taking photos of birds, I will go to Acme Dam Park. It's not a very well-known park, but it is right along the Westmoreland Fayette border. I like it because it's not very high traffic. They have a really wide variety of habitat types there and a lot of birds that travel through. It's a really nice area. So and it's close to my house, so that's one of my like absolute go-tos. When it comes to more scenery or just like being immersed in the experience, Fern Cliff Trail at Ohio Pile, if you can catch it on a weekday or early in the morning before the big crowds hit. It's just a magical place. Same thing with really anywhere along Ohio Pile. But I will do the Jonathan Run Trail, which is like on your way to the raft takeout over Kentuck Knob. That's a slightly less traffic trail and has a really nice creek, just some really good woods. Um, Photography wise, in the deep woods is usually pretty difficult because birds are either way up high or in the very dark underbrush. So I usually try to focus on like edge habitats, which is why I really like Acme for that. It's small woods, large meadows, and it's really good for that. I also love the Wolf Rocks Trail on Laurel Summit near the Spruce Flats Bog. That's I think it's a pretty long trail for like an out and back locally. It's about like 3 miles and change one way. Or no, I think it's about 4.5 miles round trip. So I guess a little over two one way. Um, but it's really nice. Some amazing like higher altitude plant communities there. You get some rare birds that for the area that will stay through the summer, whereas they usually continue further north. So yeah, that's another favorite for sure. And there's a lot of timber rattlesnakes up there. A lot of timber rattlesnakes, which are always cool to see.
There's another rare snake that's up there, and when I say rare, I mean to this region.
Mhm.
Um, I think it is the mountain earth snake. I believe is
Okay.
the snake that's up there. And we've actually been very fortunate enough to see it, which was really fun. We got some pictures. I don't know if I have those pictures on Pars, but
Mhm.
let's take a look real quick. Have you ever seen a mountain earth snake?
I have not. They're one on the list for sure. They're like mostly fossorial, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah. So I've seen on the Wolf Rocks Trail, I've seen a red-bellied snake, which was very cool. That was I think the first red-bellied snake I'd ever seen, and I've only seen a handful since. Um, but yeah, I've never seen an earth snake. Nice.
Yeah, this is a crazy looking snake. They're really interesting because, yeah, they're fossorial. They eat salamanders and soft bodied insects.
Hmm.
They also go after mollusks. They're a specialist. But I find it crazy with you saying, like, you haven't seen very many red belly snakes just because in the higher elevations where I'm from, we have
Hmm.
red belly snakes everywhere. They're
Really?
not dense, but they're definitely very common.
Hmm.
At Pitt Johnstown, we were out for an entomology class, and I was one of the first to actually find one on campus. Um,
Nice.
some really cool looking snakes. Yeah, they're one that if I could have a pet snake, I would love to figure this out, but
Yeah.
uh, no way that I'm able to at the moment. And
Yeah.
they're very difficult to keep because they only eat like earthworms and snails and slugs. They have
Yeah.
like the teeth and the jaw structure to be able to pull them out of their shells. It's really
Oh
fascinating.
wow.
You wouldn't think a small snake like this, not even pencil thick, uh,
Hmm.
could eat a snail as thick as your thumb. you know.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, and I was looking at that range map when you had it pulled up there, and I think that's why I probably haven't seen many because you can see that it's like, or the sorry, the like the individual report ones. You can see that they seem to be on the ridges there, in some of the higher elevations, and like once you drop down into the valley, they're or onto the Allegheny Plateau, there's a little bit less of them, it seems. So,
Yeah. There's also, I think, a black phase of this snake. I'm not sure if we'll be able to find that from some of these
oh wow.
pictures, but yeah, they're really crazy. So they're called a lead belly.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with the redback salamander, but see the red here
Yeah.
would just be all dark, or it'd be like
Hmm.
a lighter gray color. My friend Tyler, who's really big on pars, he like herps almost professionally, if you will. He lives to herp, just like another guy named Ed, who's the county parks, head of county parks in Indiana. Those two guys are probably the main contributors that I'm aware of to pars, at least in this region. But
Hmm.
yeah, they're always finding red belly snakes, and they're really
Nice.
cool. So I mean, there's Tyler again. Um, Two of them. Those are must be
Yeah,
hatchlings.
yeah, neonates. Dang, like that's really, really small. I see a lot of ringnecks down around me. I see more ringnecks, I feel like, than these. And then the decays, brown snakes. I see a lot of those as well. Um, which, yeah, I don't know if they have similar um like niches or anything that they would like exclude one another, but
Yeah, the brown snake is funny because it's not as abundant in at least areas that I'm from in like the higher
Mhm.
elevation. Look at that. It's like the most common place to
Yeah,
find it. It just has like that spot. So maybe it does avoid more of like the higher
the ridge.
elevation. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen a lot in like even along like the one of the bike trails in Scottsdale Mount Pleasant area. It's they just like you'll see them on the hillside. I've seen them along the Great Allegheny Passage in like Connellsville area. Um and yeah, they're I mean they're sneaky still because they're brown and they're small and they're underneath stuff, but yeah, you flip enough rocks or logs and you usually can pull one or two of them up. So,
Yeah, they're probably along with the ringneck, but even more so than the ringneck. This, if anybody would say what snake, and this is by no means saying go catch one. I'm just saying like if there was one that would thrive in captivity other than a garter snake, it would probably be the brown snake because they're just so general. They just don't care.
yeah.
They'll eat anything.
Yeah.
But you don't have to spend all this money on like large rats or frogs or anything to feed them. They'll eat
Yeah.
whatever, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're really awesome. I have only seen three ever, and it's kind of sad. I saw one actually in higher elevation in Somerset at Kimberly Run. Um, but yeah, you can kind of see they're not as. I mean, people might not just. They might not even care that they're out here to document them
Mhm.
if they even know they're out there. But yeah, a really cool snake as well. So lots of interesting things up there. Um, I'm trying to think here. We've done a lot of herping out there, a lot of different activities. But I guess if you had to pick, what would be your? You said, well, actually, hold on. Let's go back real quick. I know that you have some pictures on your Instagram as well. Did any of the parks that we mentioned? Do you have any pictures that you can think of off the top of your head that came from?
That came from those parks. I might have one. I mean, this was a while back. I might have one. Well, so yeah, actually, so I have. I mean, they're pictures of the birds, but if you go up a little bit, um, I just wasn't thinking. Yeah, the next to the one with the so there's like the black and white bird close up toward the bottom of the screen. Um, that one. Um, and then the one on the left side of the owls, and then the one right above the black one. These are all from the Wolf Rocks Trail. So that's a veery, which is one of the it's a thrush species. and it's one of our higher elevation breeders. They're not uncommon by any means in Pennsylvania, but they are fairly restricted to like the ridges. And so it's up in some mountain laurel right now, and they really like those laurel thickets, or like rhododendron type areas on the ridges. Um, and that the Wolf Rocks Trail is like one of the most reliable places in the summertime. You can get them in the morning. They have a very distinctive and really kind of like haunting, beautiful song, and you'll hear 9 or 10 of them like talking back and forth. It's really really cool. Um, and so yeah, that's a good one from one of those hikes. Um, and yeah, I'm not. I do dabble in landscapes, but I don't have many, especially not many that make it to the page. But yeah, the some of the birds are from those spots. That's actually from West Virginia, um, in the Monongahela National Forest. But
Yeah, we got some landscape here. I'd say you have a pretty decent lens for that.
yeah, it it does the job.
That'd be a very interesting place to observe at night.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's actually just like on your way, but there's if you're ever in Monongahela National Forest, there's a place called the Cranberry Glades Botanical Area, and it is um one of the southernmost extents of a lot of boreal species, of bird, of plant, of um probably some other like insects and things associated with certain plants. But yeah, it's a really interesting place. It's pretty high elevation. I think it's yeah, 3,400 feet, and it has like a nice little boardwalk around it. I went there for a very specific type of bird called a mourning warbler, which is I think it's one of the pictures like near that one, on the feed. But yeah, the one on the top left, is the one that I was there to see.
This
So
one or
that one, the one above that one, yeah, with the darker head. Um, yeah, so that's called a mourning warbler, and it's a pretty uncommon species. They do breed in Pennsylvania as well, but that's like one of the southernmost extents for that bird's breeding range. They're mostly up in the boggy areas in Canada and New England. So
so is this bird an insectivore or what does it primarily feed on?
yeah, so it's a type of warbler, and pretty much all of the warblers are insectivores of some kind. There are a few that will go after fruit, especially this time of year in the fall, when more things are fruiting. But yeah, they have those narrow little beaks. They glean insects off of leaves most of the time, or sometimes they'll catch them straight out of the air. Um, the warblers are a really diverse species, and or not diverse family, and each species sort of has its own like little micro niche. Like they're all insectivores, but these guys are like kind of skulkier, closer to the ground. You'll have some that are way high up in the treetops most of the time, and then one of my favorites, which I think is actually not, it was like slightly before these on the feed. If you scroll down a little bit, um, yeah, center next to the picture of the auroras up toward the top. Yeah, that bird is another warbler species called a Louisiana water thrush. And you can see that they will like wade in our cold water streams and take aquatic insects like off of the rocks. Um, they're just such an interesting, uh, evolutionary case study for like how they that like niche partitioning, and how they um make their livelihood. And they're such small birds too. Like you'll see them in these big rapids, and they're just like you wonder how they hang on to these little rocks with their tiny little toes. But such a cool and interesting species. One of my favorites. And honestly, if it didn't have Louisiana in the name, it would be a contender for like what I think Pennsylvania state bird should be, just because we have so many streams. Um, and they're so closely tied to water quality and like what I think of when I think of like the natural areas in our state. So
So I have two more things I wanted to talk with you about here.
yeah,
Um, we've learned a lot about birding and nature and everything else. We talked a little off camera about you becoming like the first year full time environmental teacher. So for people that are out there listening, I guess the way I want to phrase this, how do you, for one, I mean, this is definitely something you're passionate and excited about. How do you try to incorporate this into your teaching with students who either might have absolutely no background with, anything in nature to begin with, or maybe students who are a little hesitant to open up to this kind of stuff? Like, how do you navigate all of that?
yeah. Well, I think one of the things that really I try to drive home is that like there are certain topics that I have to cover, like we have the standardized type curriculum and things like that. But the way in which I cover them is largely up to me. And when it comes to what I think back on from a lot of like my schooling and what I have heard is that you hear of these examples of things and of examples of topics, and they're from like all far off corners of the globe, right? You hear about the tropical rainforest, and you hear about the polar ice caps and things like that, and it's really hard, especially for a lot of these kids who have maybe never left their home region, or never left the country, right? It's hard for them to kind of grasp that these things aren't just uh out there somewhere else in the world not affecting them, but they're in their backyards, they're at home, and the amazing diversity that we actually have here in Pennsylvania. Like I know that I didn't realize just how much is here until I really started looking. And so when I teach, I try to bring in as many local examples as I possibly can. It takes a little bit of extra effort, but like going through and using, I mean, so I use a lot of my own pictures as examples for things a lot of times, and it's sort of selfish, like a way to show it off. But it's also like you'll get kids and they're like, oh hey, I've seen that before. I show a picture of a rattlesnake or something, and they'll say, hey, I've seen one of those. We were hiking around, and then you bring that back to the topic that you're discussing, and it makes that connection for them. And so yeah, one of my main goals, coming from a background as like a more informal and local environmental educator at a watershed group, is to continue that in my classroom and make it like bring those connections together and allow the kids to see like, hey, if I'm interested in conservation, I don't have to go to the rainforest. I don't have to go to these crazy places. Like I can do this stuff near me, and I can make a difference even if I don't want to go into conservation. I can make a difference in my local environment by not, dumping stuff in the stream, or not throwing stuff out of the, litter out of the car, and like little things, that not killing the snake with the shovel in the backyard. Like that's a big one. And so it's like I really try to hammer those points home that like this is local, this is affecting us, and you can do a lot with it locally if you're interested in that. I have a really great network of friends from my time at the Watershed Group, and just other local conservation people that I really, as I keep going, want to utilize and showcase like some careers and different things that you can do with conservation work, and things that are being done. I'm very fortunate too. The school that I teach at is like right at the foot of Lynn Roan State Park. And so I have a really nice outdoor area, which is a luxury not a lot of schools get. But I definitely take full advantage of that when I can, getting the kids outside, getting them doing observations of what's around them. Um, and we're also, as a bird guy, I'm very fortunate that I work about 10 minutes from Powder Mill Nature Reserve with the Carnegie Museum. And so, like, They have their amazing bird banding program there, and I really want to get the kids out there at some point to see that science being done like locally. And they do some really amazing work there. And yeah, so that's sort of what I hope to inspire in the kids is showing them that it's not just something out there in the world, but it's something that's like local. So
Yeah, it's funny. There's so much we could say about Powder Mill. We just did a hiking episode on the YouTube channel about them,
mhm.
the Black Birch Trail, which we just had a couple of the guys go out there, kind of report what they saw. A guy who is a newer person on the hiking show. He has a degree in geology in his undergrad and his master's. He's a regional planner, so he was out there looking at the beech leaf disease and the water quality, and talking about succession. And then another guy who's more into the culture and historical aspects of it was talking about how it was farmland and how much acreage is out there and different things like that. So, and we also got a chance to showcase one of the other things I wanted to bring up in passing. Of course, I have my Part 107 and I fly drones, and we took it out there into the canopy and had a chance to look while we were like on the trail what it looked like from above 400 feet, which was like really epic.
Yeah.
But I guess in passing, another question as a side quest that I had was, what's your thoughts on the conflicts, or if there aren't any, or you're not really aware of it? Like, what is the bird drone scenario from like an environmentalist perspective?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think, I mean, it's sort of the conversation around drones in general, right? It's like it's such a powerful and useful tool when it's done responsibly and correctly, right? It's the burden is on the person like piloting it and their responsibility. And so when it comes to birds, there are definitely scenarios when I think that they could be useful. I know that there have been some like used to overhead survey like nesting colonies of certain birds in different areas. Um, and yeah, I think they've used some even. I might be wrong about this, but there was a recent-ish search down in like Louisiana and Arkansas area for traces of the presumed extinct ivory-billed woodpecker, and I think they may have used some drone reconnaissance for that. Not positive, but I do know that like other than birds, there's a lot of use of that in conservation work. So it definitely can be a powerful tool. That said, I do know, and birds are kind of unique in that they can also fly and cause issues with it. So it's like I know a lot of places that have like strictly prohibited them because they've either had issues with it or just can foresee issues. Those that turn with the eggs that I showed, like they're one that would be particularly vulnerable to disturbances from like overhead drones, especially because the areas that they nest in are usually roped off from like access via the ground, and so it's really tempting if you have one to fly it over to get a closer shot of things. But that then that becomes that crosses the line when it's like um, a non-researcher doing it, or it can. And so yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. I think yeah, it can be used in a lot of really useful ways for promoting the conservation. But yeah, birds are they're sensitive little guys. They're really particular about things sometimes. The a lot of the time when they're nesting, if they just get pestered too much, even if it's not anything that we would consider to be major pestering, like they can abandon eggs, they can use up a lot of extra energy. A one that I know is a big problem, even without drones, like just photographers in general, is with like roosting owls. Um, Especially when it's a rarer type of owl, people will get on them and they will just constantly like photograph them in waves. But it just makes a really big stress for the bird. A few years ago in Carlisle, PA, there was a snowy owl that dropped in for probably about 2 weeks. And literally, probably thousands of people went to photograph that bird from all around the state, myself included. So, like, I'm kind of being a little hypocritical about it, but like, it can be a really big problem when those things aren't done equitably. And so, like, when I do my photography, I'm not gonna say I don't approach birds like to get better shots, because I do. But there are moments where you kind of realize you're crossing a line, like if you're constantly chasing something down, if it's like near to, usually if they're near nests, I really don't bother with them unless I kind of stumble upon it. I don't seek those out typically.
But yeah, I know you're a teacher. You got to get some sleep to, give everything to those kids. So, Alex, thank you so much for getting on here to talk about pretty much all kinds of stuff like the hiking, the adventuring, birding, photography in the classroom. We covered a lot of awesome topics. So, just real quick, if you want to give a shout out to your social media so that way people can follow you and learn what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This was really great talking with you and getting this opportunity to share some of the stuff that I'm getting up to. But yeah, my Instagram is it's Alexander Salamander, with two underscores in between. Somebody had already taken the one that had one underscore, so I'm but yeah, Alexander Salamander material is on Instagram. So yeah, give it a follow and hopefully you learn something.
Sounds good. And then the Westmoreland Bird and Nature Club, right?
Yes, yeah, the Westmoreland Bird and Nature Club. That's we're on Facebook as a group, and then also wbnc.net, which will take you right to our homepage. And if you're interested in joining, there's information on there to join. But also, if you just want to come out and test the waters, we accept everybody, member or non-member. Really, the membership basically only pays for like the mailers and a couple like we have some meetings like indoor meetings so to rent the spaces. But yeah, it's a very welcoming community to all skill levels, all interest types. We have plant people, we have bird people, we got reptile and amphibian people, right? We got a little bit of everything, and we all are constantly learning from one another, regardless of age. Like it's a really nice group, and very low stakes, like low commitment. If you just want to show up for one outing a year, some people only do one outing a year that they really like, and that's all they do, and we're happy to have them. So
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this one. You can be sure to follow the Westmoreland Bird and Nature Club. I'm on there sharing stuff for the Woods and Forests Media YouTube
mhm.
channel for PA Woods and Forests. And you can always see Alex sharing different things, whether it's informational tidbits of different species or even just, hosting events. So hopefully you guys will join us and potentially join that group. But don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us for more Woods and Forest media content. We'll see you in the next one.